I don't know if the victim's family is listening in, but if they are listening in, what they're going to hear is that the man that murdered the victim's husband and the victim's fathers has been doing good for about 2 years, because his last set of disciplinary tickets were in 2022 for the same things he was struggling with when he committed these heinous acts. So in 2022, he's caught with marijuana and making his own alcohol inside of a correctional facility. In 1994, when these acts happened, he's sitting outside smoking marijuana and drinking. Where's the change? Where's the rehabilitation? Where is that narrative that shows Torres has reflected, Mr. Torres has reflected on his actions and said, I'm going to do better. When I get out into the community, I don't want to be the same person.
And the voice you just heard is the voice of the ADA, the Assistant District Attorney, dropping what was mic drop after mic drop on this unrepented man. This man who in 1994 was given a 50-year sentence for bringing an Uzi into a robbery and shooting the man unprovoked 5 times. Now, we have the information on this case, and this wasn't just a normal robbery gone wrong. As a matter of fact, at trial, the judge was going to give him 40 years for his plea deal, but he was so stoic and he refused to cooperate that the judge said, no, actually, you're going to get all 50. And now here he is in court years early. Is because new legislation was passed in Connecticut, Act 23169, which deemed anyone under the age of 21, not 18, 21, a child. So it would be unconstitutionally correct to keep him in prison. Make that make sense. Anyways, we'll watch this parole hearing. Now the opening statement is quite long. He goes into it, and then Mike Pohl goes on for 20 minutes without doing any real digging. So you could skip ahead quite a bit. And you know what? I've seen in the comment section that many of you want me to put timestamps. So I will put timestamps in this. I've never done it before. I'll figure it out. And if you're happy that I did it, let me know in the comment section so I can put an effort to put it in more, at least for hearings like this. And with that, let's jump in.
Richard David Torres, MA number 226205.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing in accordance with Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1-200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. Torres, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time. Again, this is a public hearing. Mr. Torres, do you have any questions?
No questions, ma'am.
And are you willing to proceed with the hearing at this time?
Yes.
Thank you. So as previously indicated, this is the Public Act 23169 hearing being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Richard Torres, inmate number 226205. Mr. Torres is serving a sentence of 50 years flat with no probation to follow for murder and attempted robbery and first degree with a deadly weapon. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan in place. It has been reviewed and shows that he has completed programming such as Alternatives to Violence, Voices in Tier 2. He reportedly also completed Cage Your Rage, a parenting program beyond fear in a CNA course, and he presently maintains a job assignment. Utilizing the statewide collaborative risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the moderate range risk for recidivism. Mr. Torres, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole, and you may begin.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to start by saying thank you for giving me this opportunity and allowing me to introduce myself before you as the person I am today. On June 29th, 1994, I, Richard David Torres, committed the most horrific act of my life by causing the loss of life to another living soul. In this horrific act, I also caused a lifelong suffering pain to the children, wife, and loved ones of a very important person. For the past 30 years, I regret every day for not apologizing to the family. Today, I'm grateful for having the opportunity to say to the family and community that I'm truly sorry for my actions. I'm so sorry for taking the life of the victim, an important figure of their lives. I realize that anything I say or do from here on forward can never change what I have done. But I pray that God will allow you all to find it in your hearts to forgive me one day. Today, I can guarantee that I'm not that same 20-year-old person anymore. To my victim's family, my family in the state of Connecticut, I'm deeply sorry for the reckless act and horrific actions I caused. Growing up, I always believed that I had a normal upbringing, but it was never true. I was raised by my mother, Maria Torres, and my stepdad, Santiago Pagan Jr., whom I've always considered to be my dad. I remember family vacations, family events, great birthdays, and holidays that were spent with family. With those events came physical fights between my mom and stepdad. I never knew what they fought over, but I remember that a day filled with happiness was always crushed with fear and anxiety. I remember both my parents drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes and marijuana, thinking it was the coolest thing to do. I would sneak marijuana and beer out of the house to consume with a friend. On my 13th birthday, my mother gave me permission to smoke freely. Writing this was very hard because I feel like I'm speaking ill of my mother. But I also wanted to be known that she did the best she could in raising 6 children, teaching me morals and how to love. The qualities I have today are because she instilled them in me. My mom was epileptic and would have episodes so bad that she would be committed to hospitals because of memory loss. It was so severe when I was younger that I remember caring for her with my brother. Had it not been for my stepdad, Santiago Pagan Jr., or Papito as I would call him, we wouldn't have known how to care for her. He always been caring to us, keeping a job as a trucker to provide for us. He was a great role model to me. I remember being placed in foster care. What I remember most was that my brother and sister were placed with family, and I was placed in an unknown home with strangers. Even though I was placed in a safe environment, I always asked myself why I couldn't be placed with family. Thinking that I was not loved was very tough on me. Bouncing between schools and always being smaller in size, I got picked on. Not having my big brother or dad around became hard on me. So I learned at a very young age to act out before I was the one to be picked on. Before I knew it, our family was back together and all was good until I saw my mother throwing my dad out of the house after a huge fight. My parents were getting divorced, and that was devastating to me, losing my dad and my only father figure. I see that today, it's when I started to misbehave to the point of failing in school and getting into trouble with the law. I didn't understand what transpired with my parents, but I held it against my mom. So when she tried to discipline me, I always fought against her, not knowing that she was only trying to help me find the right way in life. After being arrested as a juvenile, I was placed in Connecticut Junior Republic, where I spent around 2 years. During that time, my mom was building another abusive relationship that didn't sit right with me. Elvin was a good man. He just had a disease. He was an alcoholic and drug addict. Being around him caused my mom to consume more poison, bringing her down to her lowest point. Around this time in life, I was 16 years old, trying to figure out my way in life without proper guidance. This is when I found the Latin Kings, a street gang who took me in as a family member of their own. Now I had a bigger family, never questioning if I was loved, always knowing that I would be safe with them. No more bullying. What I didn't realize is that it was all a fraud and my life would spiral a lot faster. Somehow being in a gang, I got my GED, vocational educational diploma, and driver's license at Westover Job Corps in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Now realizing that my use of alcohol and marijuana progressed, with me experimenting with other drugs leading me to a destructive path. Upon completing Job Corps, I started working as a bridge painter at various locations in Connecticut, and still being involved with gang activity until one day I found myself laid off and nowhere else to turn but the gang and drugs. June 29th, 1994, I found myself thinking of how I would spend the day with no cash. I came up with the worst idea: to rob someone of their cash. That day I was driving around with Miguel Catala and Alexis Alvarado. We decided on the same thing: to rob the store owner on Baldwin Street in the South End of Hartford. Neither of us anticipated the outcome of that day. If I could only have had the strength I have today, we would not be here in this moment. But unfortunately, I didn't, and I caused the worst act upon a respectable family. On that afternoon, we decided to go through with the robbery. Upon arriving at the scene, I had this gut feeling and didn't want to move forward. Being that I was easy to persuade, it didn't take much but a little push, and that's what happened. Miguel pushed on my seat and said, "Let's go." That's when I got out the car, ran into the store, jumped over the counter. Seconds later, Katana entered as well. We were both armed at that point. The victim was trying to disarm me. When Katana entered, I told him to shoot. My firearm was not loaded to fire. When Katana pointed his firearm at the victim, he then let go of his hold on the firearm. He pushed the panic alarm, put both arms up. During all this, I armed my firearm. When the victim saw that Katana was not going to fire his weapon, he continued to grab hold of the firearm I had. The firearm went off, and I shot the victim into the chest area. I told him to get on the floor, but instead he turned around and started to run. He took a few steps and put his arm out as if to reach for something. In this quick moment, I thought he was reaching for a weapon, in which I proceeded to fire the weapon. Fire the weapon again at the victim. Today, I know that the victim was not reaching for a weapon, but reaching to brace his fall. After all that, I tried quickly to open the cash register and was unable to. After that, I ran out to the car and we drove away. I sit every day and ask myself what I have done differently. And the answer is simple. Could I woke up that morning and went job hunting? During my incarceration, I completed various self-help programs, which gave me information to help me be the person I am today. Programs like Cage Your Rage, anger management, adventure-based counseling, gang awareness, culture awareness, close custody phase, beyond fair, alternatives to violence, parenting, certified nurses assistance program, voices, and living in balance tier 2 program. All these programs have helped me in one way or another. But Tier 2 has had the biggest impact. It is a program that deals with the root of addiction. This is when I truly discovered I was self-medicating due to childhood trauma. It helped me realize that the choice of using alcohol and drugs only caused more harm to myself and others. I realize today that there are better choices when feeling down, that I don't need to consume alcohol or drugs to feel better, let alone to cause harm to myself or others. Other programs that have had an impact on me are Voices, intervention-based counseling. Voices taught me that due to my poor decisions I made in life, created a chain of victims, and many people were affected by my poor decision making. Adventure-based counseling dealt with trust and communication, something I've always lacked, but now I have the skills. Since my incarceration, I have had more than enough time to reflect on the person I was then and the person I am today. Sitting here today, I can honestly say that it hasn't been an easy road for me, but it has been rewarding. I became interested in striving for myself, learning new trades along the way. Being able to work has been therapeutic for me. I have worked alongside great people, and if not for that, I don't know what would have become of me. I utilize my time in learning and working different trades, from janitorial work, cutting hair as a barber, being a certified nurse's assistant in the medical field, working with maintenance department as a welder, fabricator, and being a 7-day plumber, working as a property clerk, and now I am recently employed by the CEC clothing factory as a machine operator, making t-shirts, in which I was recently promoted as a floor counter. All these jobs allowed me to improve my communication skills. The most rewarding job was working as a CNA. Rewarding because I worked along staff and hospice volunteers, dealing with terminally ill patients. Being able to provide some sort of comfort to another human being gave me a stronger drive to being a better person every day. Maybe one day I will have the opportunity to be recertified so that I may be able to volunteer my services in that field. But if you ask me today what I see myself doing in the future, it would be me going to school to pursue a career in the plumbing or cosmetology field, or obtaining a CDL. What I have learned and have a profound respect for is that I have to continue to work hard and earn my share. Today I sit before you all to say that I am not that 20-year-old. I have developed a strong sense of empathy and awareness for the impact of my actions on the victim, his wife, children, and community. I use my time wisely to be able to transform my outlook on life and realize my true responsibilities to my family and community. I'm aware that I alone have the ability and power to direct my life in a positive manner. I can respectfully say that I have taken responsibility and accountability for my actions. I have taken all the steps to be a better person and would like a chance to be a productive citizen again. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Torres, thank you very much for your statement. We appreciate you putting your thoughts down on paper. I know that's very helpful, and you provide us with a lot of good information. This panel has, in preparation of today's hearing, reviewed your file extensively. Things such as your police reports, the sentencing transcript from the time of your offense, your records throughout your incarceration, to include certificates, disciplinary reports, evaluations from facilitators and work supervisors. In addition, we did receive correspondence from Attorney Williams and a report from social worker, oh gosh, I'll mess it up.
Simolin.
What is it?
Simolin.
Simolin.
Simolin. Yeah,
Simolin,
thank you.
yes, thank you. So anyhow, we're very well versed in your case. We do have some additional questions when we're done with our questions. I don't believe we have any input from the Office of Victim Services here today. And I also don't, oh, actually, we may from the state attorney's office, and your attorney will have the opportunity to speak. Okay, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll begin our questioning with my colleague, Mr. Pohl. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Torres.
Morning.
Thank you for that detailed statement. Oftentimes we have to dig to have somebody who's in front of us talk about exactly what happened. And you did that. You explained exactly what happened. And it's tragic. Because a family man lost his life, you know, trying to just make a living for himself and his wife and, you know, family. And you talked about how you got there. And that was, for me, that was really important information. Oftentimes, you know, and why we're here today is because things happen early in life that send a person down a certain road. And fortunately, in this case, somebody lost their life. In order for you to be in there and to turn it around. I did have a question because I kind of missed it, but when you were talking about not having guidance growing up in that period of time, where you joined the Latin Kings and found that place where imagine, you know, what you believe to be the family, the support and thing that gang life appears to have, but really doesn't. How old did you say you were?
I was 16 years old.
You were 16. You know, in reading your file, you've done quite a bit inside. Early on, the programming that you took that was in the 90s, and then again a little bit 2000, 2001, 2008. You know, there was some SRG back there originally. And there had been other types of disciplinary reports that really stopped after that programming took place. But one thing really persisted, and that's something that I really want to get to because, again, what appears is that after you had programming, things turned around. And that has to do with your last 5 tickets. So there's 27 there altogether. The biggest bulk of them happened before the year in or before the year 2000. But there's contraband tickets and there's refusal to give specimen tickets that are the most recent 7 that went from 2020 through December of 2022. Can you talk about that? Can you? I know that you talked about Tier 2 and how that you learned about self-medicating. I'll also preface that by saying that the evaluation that you have from DOC staff says that you did excellent across the board when you took tier 2. Can you reflect? Because one of the things that really has me like hesitant here is substance use, because it played such a role in the offense itself. So can you talk about that, please?
Well, basically, I've always just grown up thinking that alcohol and smoking marijuana was a normal thing that people did. It wasn't serious. And I actually grew up thinking that. So since 2020, going through the epidemic, being locked in here, basically 23 hours a day, put a lot of stress on me. Not seeing my family, and at times not being able to make phone calls. And it just drove me to make a poor decision and want to just drown myself and consume myself with any type of something to cover that up. And my way was just thinking of getting high. You know, smoking marijuana would be the easiest way. But it's just that I've learned that I was causing more harm to myself. Every time I consumed, I was causing more harm to myself. Not just myself, but with me catching tickets and DRs, I was affecting everyone else. My family, my son, and just peers in here that actually looked up to me. And I had a difficult time with losing my mother. I lost my mother in 2022. That's when I caught my last 3 tickets. I didn't want to cause any more pain upon myself, my family. I ended up seeking help, and that's what drove me to participate in tier 2. After writing a request to them, they said my drug score was way too low, that I could not participate. I had to write 3 requests after that, seeking the help. And eventually, the counselor there at Cheshire CI took me in. And I just realized that I was just covering up any pain that I had from my past. Anytime I just sit back and start thinking, that's what I ended up doing, just trying to cover it with any type of narcotic or any type of drug that I could. And it's not the choice that I want to make anymore. I no longer want that. Now I know I can seek help. Now I know I can go and talk. There's caring people out there. When I first came into the facilities, being incarcerated, I always felt like everyone was here to punish me. That's not true. There's actually people in here who care. I've had officers come up to me, officers, asking me, Mr. Torres, are you all right? You know, if anything, you can always come and talk to me or ask me for anything. That just goes a long way and means a lot to me. It took me a while to realize that I can seek help. And there are people here that will help you.
So, those are the most recent tickets. And so suitability for parole rests in my confidence that you can go out there and not reoffend. So to carry the discussion forth of what we were just talking about, what's your plan in the community to deal with this? And go ahead.
My first plan is, I've always found that just keeping a job in general keeps me occupied and keeps my mind stimulated in a positive manner. One thing that my sisters always stressed to me is to seek counseling in here. Counseling in here is not the same as on the street, on the community. It's a little bit different in here. I've tried seeking counseling in here, and if you're not trying to commit suicide, or if you're not trying to cause harm to someone else, then basically you're just on your own. My plan is to join my sisters. I have two sisters, Kathy Galarza and Bianca Santiago, that attend counseling, and they're always strongly advising for me to do that, and I'm willing to join any counseling program. And here, when I'm stressed, I like to play handball, do some type of sports, and listen to music. Found ways to just calm myself down and not to think so much or stress myself out. But I plan on continue doing NA programs, AA, any type of community service. And whatever the parole, my parole officer at the time will be willing to advise me to do to help me get through that.
What's your experience been with AA and NA?
With AA and NA, I attended a few meetings when I was young, in the 90s. Honestly, in here, I seen guys going in there and talking about not getting high and then going into the block and getting high. So it's just a bad experience for me in here. On the most part, I stopped going. It was a turn off for me.
What's your perception about how that would be different in the community?
I seen the volunteers that come in here and the counselor that actually did the tier 2 program discussed on his recovery. You can see when someone truly wants to change. And I know on the street it might be similar, might be the same. I'm looking forward to being introduced to, those meeting people who genuinely really want to change and genuinely care and want you to see you recover and not fall back.
Do you know when the last time was that you had a substance use evaluation?
Substance abuse evaluation,
Yeah. You know how you said your score was too low?
yes.
You know when the last time it was that somebody did an evaluation with you?
They don't do evaluations in here with anybody, sir. They just give the
So it was in classification in the 1990s that they gave you two?
They do that, yeah. It's just stood as a tool throughout the whole progression.
Which is just not accurate. There's no way that it can be accurate.
Exactly.
The offense that you committed going into it, you said that it was related to alcohol and drugs.
Right.
And you've had substance use infractions while you've been in. It's like, yeah. But I'm really happy that you were persistent with tier 2 and wrote to several times to get in, right? Have you ever heard of recovery coaches?
Recovery coaches,
Yeah.
yes. In tier 2, I've heard of it.
What's that?
In tier 2, I've heard of it.
And what did they talk to you about related to a recovery coach?
Recovery coach is like it's like having a sponsor, someone who's gonna be there and help you get through it. Someone who you can fall back on and rely on to direct you in the right direction.
So what do you think about that as part of your recovery plan?
It's what I'm looking forward to, sir.
So that's
Excuse me.
yeah. Go ahead. That's what you're looking forward to.
In the future, yeah, that's one of my plans. I'm not gonna be able to do it on my own. And I know I'm gonna need a recovery coach or a sponsor. So
Do you feel like there's a need to do it on your own?
no, I'm not gonna be able to.
That's humility. That's important. So you're going to go out to a halfway house if you granted parole.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that you said that you'd be interested in doing is tree cutting.
Yes, sir.
Some experience with that when you were younger?
No experience. I just I'm one of them guys that I'm a hands-on type person. I know I can pick that trade up. I'm willing to learn. I'm always willing to learn anything new. A friend of mine came across my path recently and gave me the information on a job opportunity, being that I do get parole.
So, in your remarks, you also talked about trying to get, recertified as a CNA.
Yes, sir.
Is that something is that an option that's out there?
My grandmother is very old at this time, and she attends this center, and I'm so grateful that she has that. And it's just, I'm passionate about dealing and helping out, especially the elderly. So when I hear of her going to the center, I always imagine myself helping out at that center with her and the other individuals there, or any center that it may be.
So along that line, you also talked about in your remarks, and I think this is important for our consideration. You talked about working with the people in hospice in there as well. What did you take? What did you take away from that?
What did I take away from working with hospice patients? It's an experience. It's an experience in here watching someone deteriorate with no one else. So just being able to provide some type of comfort to an individual gives me gratification. In doing so, I always looked at it like that was my way of giving back. Just gratifying.
That's definitely part of it. You know, it's when somebody's done what you have, it's important for me to be able to see that you have a different respect for life. During incarceration, going through that is one of those ways of being able to see life different. So I'm glad that you had that experience. We received several letters in support. You did say that you wanted to get involved with a nonprofit, but there weren't any real specifics there in terms of what. You know, I don't know the outcome of today, but I do know that you know, that when things come out and you come back into the community, you have the ability to share with others what you've been through. and your life experience can help others not commit the offense that you committed. And with what you just said about one of the ways of giving back, that's always going to be a lifetime thing for Mr. Amenda. You know, it's like that's something that you need to carry with you. And you need to turn that into something where you might be able to help someone else, not cause what Mrs. Amenda had to go through. So I hope you keep that at the forefront of your mind. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Okay, Mr. Torres, I do want to go back to your crime. We're not here to retry your case, but there are some inconsistencies that I'd like to clear up. So I read in some documents that the reason you were robbing the store is because you owed money to a drug dealer and you wanted to get more money to buy more drugs to sell. Is that the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you were selling drugs at the time. Were you using drugs at the time as well?
Yes, ma'am.
What drugs were you using?
Smoking weed, marijuana, and heroin.
Okay. Alcohol? I thought I read alcohol as well. Were you drinking?
Yes, ma'am. Alcohol.
Were you working at that time?
No.
Okay. All right. As my colleague mentioned, this really was a horrible tragedy and senseless. I do take issue, and the reason I want to raise this issue is because I do believe you take responsibility, but it can at times appear that you minimize. And I'm not sure if you know what that means, but when you make comments to the parole officer in your interview, and I think you did it again here today, that the gun went off, the shot went off. Well, we know that guns just don't go off, right? So that makes it sound as if you're portraying it as an accident, and it was not an accident. You shot your victim. So be careful with your words. When you say things like the shot went off, it's more appropriate to say, I shot him. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you regret not showing remorse to your victim's family at sentencing?
Every day. Every day I regret it.
Yeah. I mean, I hope you've learned from the Voices program that sometimes it is very valuable to a victim and their family just to hear those words, just to hear an acceptance of responsibility and an apology and remorse. You know, I think it makes it much more difficult. And I understand you were young at the time, 20 years old, and maybe didn't know how to take full responsibility, but it makes it so much harder. We hear all the time victims' families say, you know, he just either laughed or chuckled or stood there with no emotion, or it just seemed so much colder. So I'm glad you were able to express that remorse today in the event that anybody is listening, because this is a public hearing and it is live streaming. You've taken a lot of good programs. You certainly have attempted to turn your life around. My colleague mentioned with you your CNA work. Where did you do that? Where did you work in the hospice?
I started at Corrigan Correctional Institution. Then I came here, and this is where they have the hospice program.
So where were you certified as a CNA?
I was certified at Corrigan Correctional Institution.
Okay, but you actually did the work at Osborne?
Yes, ma'am.
And what year was that?
Right off the top of my head, I don't remember, but I want to say around 2015.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And how long did you hold that position?
6 months.
And what happened after the 6 months?
To this day, I don't know.
Were you fired? Were you let go? What Why didn't you do it any
I
longer?
wasn't fired. They just, per administration, I was relieved of my duties as long as, two other gentlemen. I was
Okay.
offered, a position back at Corrigan or, Bridgeport County. And-
Okay, but you didn't go to either.
No, ma'am.
Okay. You're receiving 12 days of statutory good time a month, right, off of your sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were receiving at one point 4 or 5 days a month for job credit.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
ended when you got your disciplinary reports a little over 2 years ago.
Mhm.
But you've been working now, you said, since April of last year in the clothing factory?
Yes, ma'am.
So why aren't you getting job credits for that?
It's not considered a 7-day job.
Well, how many days are you working?
6
What are the hours that you work?
from 8:15 to 5:30 in the
Okay.
afternoon.
So that job credit is only for 7-day jobs.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood. Okay. I will tell you that the most concerning part of your case for me is these disciplinary reports. You know, on the one hand, you're taking these good programs, you're working. On the other hand, you're using drugs while you're incarcerated. You're I don't know if you're selling the drugs or just possessing them as well. You have a cell phone, which is a huge security breach in a correctional facility. Where'd you get the cell phone?
Got it off an individual in here.
You bought it from somebody in prison?
Actually, I traded.
And what did you need a cell phone for?
The reason for the cell phone was to have communication with my mother.
Why weren't you having communication over telephone or tablet or whatever other means you have in there?
At that time, we only had this regular phone. We didn't have the tablets. My mother got diagnosed with cancer, stage 4.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to spend as much time as I could with her. I knew that I wasn't be able to get no visits with her, so I got the phone for that reason. So I could see my mother and just talk to her whenever I wanted to.
One of your sanctions for your tickets was loss of your tablet. You're saying you didn't have a tablet at that time? I'm looking in the system, and it says
When my mother got diagnosed with cancer, we didn't have the tablets, ma'am.
but okay, when was that diagnosis?
I say the beginning year of 2022.
Okay, the ticket was the end of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
And at that time, you did have a tablet. So why did you still have the phone?
That's a question that my sister always asked me.
And, you know, Mr. Torres, I'm very sorry to hear that about your mom, but that's real life. Our family members get sick, and we can't break rules and laws when things like this in life happen. You know, when COVID hit, we were all part of that pandemic. We didn't all go out and use drugs. You understand that you have to find better coping mechanisms.
And that's why I decided to take the Tier 2 program. Give me the tools to deal with that.
Yeah.
It's what I struggled with throughout my whole sentencing. I'm still struggling today.
Yeah, you have to You know, and I don't know what program gives you those tools, but you have to find a way. For sure. We did get a letter from the tree company with a job offer for you. What's the name of the tree company?
CM Tree Services. The
And
owner is
that's
from,
It's a friend of yours?
he's a mutual friend of a friend.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Well, listen, you've been incarcerated for almost 31 years, and you'll finish this 50-year sentence right around 35 years of time served. You're running out of time, so you really need to gain as many tools as possible in whatever time you have left there. We want you to be successful. And yeah, I do see some change, but I'm not sure you're quite yet ready to be out in the community. Thank you for speaking with me, Ms. Chance.
So, Madam Chair, you asked most of the questions that I had, but I just had one question for Mr. Torres. Do you think that you have matured since the date of your crimes?
Yes, ma'am.
How?
I didn't think when I was younger, I just didn't think. Not even just younger until I was in my 30s. Always had a hard time rationalizing how I think. You know, my thought process was always, how am I gonna get by this to make me feel better without realizing the cause of my choice would have on someone else. I
So,
always made poor decisions. With that being said, is I feel like I've matured by me realizing that I do have issues and that I do need help. It took a lot for me to seek help from others. I've always thought I can do it on my own. And taking a tier 2 program, I realized that I can't do this on my own. I can't. It hasn't been working, and it's not going to work with me doing it on my own.
so Mr. Torres, for me, it simply tells me that yes, you are on the road to maturity, because when you have matured or grown, one of the success measures that you use is in your decision making. And it's obvious, just going back to when you committed the crimes, you were using drugs. And during your incarceration, you continued to use drugs up to 2 years ago. And then you talked about during the period of COVID, when you continued to make poor decisions. So do you understand what I'm saying? That in terms of being mature, it's that we are making better decisions in our lives. And you are on the road, Mr. Torres. I just think that you still have some more work to do. And one of the ways that I know you're on the road is because today you have acknowledged that you still experience problems with depression and you have certain issues surrounding receiving counseling to deal with that. So I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So I wish you success on your continued journey, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, and I'll note again for the record, we have no input today from the Office of Victim Services.
Thank you. At this time, for each of the attorneys present, their opportunity to make a statement. Attorney Walcott, at the onset of this, before you get started with your statement, if you don't mind identifying yourself for the record, indicating your juris number as well as your business address for us, please.
Yes, it's Sharmise Walcott, State's Attorney for Hartford Judicial District. And my juris number, I will provide that to you in just a moment. I do recall you asked for it last time. I think it's 423-818. But I'll get the exact number for you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank
If you
you.
have any comments or statements or remarks of any kind that you'd like to make, you may do so now.
Thank you. Very brief. I did listen to Madam Chair's questions and the commission members' questions, and they really address some of the things that I wanted to address here before the board. But I do want to highlight just a few things. I did want to highlight the difference of the summary, the factual summary that was noted in the PSI. If the board has access to the PSI, then I will not read it. But this is the original PSI from 1995. But the summary of the offense is very different than the summary that Mr. Torres puts forth today. And it's the summary that serves as the basis for his original sentence of 50 years on the murder and 20 years on the attempted robbery. But it's that Hartford PD received a call for shots fired at a local convenience store. When they went in, the owner of the store was lying on the floor in the rear of the store, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Emergency medical technicians were summoned. They pronounced the victim dead at the scene. The investigation revealed that on the afternoon of the killing, Richard Torres had been with 3 friends smoking marijuana and drinking when they decided to rob a store for profit. While the offender, Mr. Torres, was driving the car, they obtained a machine gun and drove back to the market that they were hanging out at. Mr. Torres and his co-defendant exited the vehicle and went into the store, where Torres accosted the victim behind the cash register. Torres then fired a number of shots in rapid succession into the victim and tried unsuccessfully to open the cash register. I do not attend all parole hearings, but I do attend some where the safety of residents of Hartford and Greater Hartford, I believe, are at risk. And when I read Mr. Torres's decision information summary, there were a few things that jumped out at me. I'm going to start with page 6. He identified Waterbury and Hartford as the top 2 locations that he would like to go to, that he would like to be placed in for his community release and kind of work on the things that he has to work on. And my difficulty with that is that Hartford is the very community that Mr. Torres terrorized. It's the very community that he came in and he executed someone for no reason. There were no indicators that he demanded money in advance. There were no indicators that the shop owner, attempted to struggle. As he said in his answering some questions from Mr. Pohl, he placed blame on this shop owner, right? He's placed blame on his friends. His friend pushed his seat, and all he needed was that little push to get out of the car and to go forward with their plan for the robbery. He says he told the victim to get on the ground, but he reached, as if the victim did something wrong. That victim did nothing wrong. Torres was in the driver's seat that day. They went and obtained a machine gun and went back to a store and executed a man. Sometimes we have to we have to be okay with some crimes just deserve punishment. That's what they deserve. It's what the community deserves, to be free from someone who's tormenting it. Mr. Torres's criminal record at the time was somebody who was tormenting this community. In 1993, he had a criminal trespass, theft of a firearm, carrying a pistol without a permit, and then failed to appear when lawfully and legally required to do so before a court of law. 94, possession of narcotics, sale of other illegal drugs. Again in 94, a larceny third, taking things that don't belong to him. He was charged with failure to appear. And then finally, in August of 94, we have the murder and attempt to commit robbery first. Mr. Torres was making poor decisions back then, and he continues to make those poor decisions today. I don't know if the victim's family is listening in, but if they are listening in, what they're going to hear is that the man that murdered the victim's husband and the victim's fathers has been doing good for about 2 years. Because his last set of disciplinary tickets were in 2022 for the same things he was struggling with when he committed these heinous acts. So in 2022, he's caught with marijuana and making his own alcohol inside of a correctional facility. In 1994, when these acts happened, he's sitting outside smoking marijuana and drinking. Where's the change? Where's the rehabilitation? Where is that narrative that shows Torres has reflected, Mr. Torres has reflected on his actions and said, I'm going to do better. When I get out into the community, I don't want to be the same person. I want to be better. I want to do something new. There's nothing new here. When we go through his decision tree, again, page 5, he began a job in April of 2024 where he's working in a clothing factory. There was another job where he was let go, and it's a lot left to read between the lines, and I'm not even going to approach that. But April 2024, he starts the job. He says that he talked to mental health staff, quote, a few times, mainly when people have passed away. When inquired, when Mr. Pohl inquired of him about, getting the treatment, he says he doesn't get counseling because it's not the same as on the outside. Well, no, it's not the same as on the outside. You're not on the outside. You committed a crime, you're being punished, there's punishment. There is counseling on the inside. And I think his statement of laying the blame for him not getting counseling at the counselor's feet is a problem. DOC counselors work hard. They're in there trying to help people reform. And he says, well, it's not the same as the outside, so he's not going to go. When asked why he doesn't go to AA or NA, he says, well, because others go in there and say they're not going to use, but then they get high on the block. So because other people aren't doing the right thing, he's not going to take advantage of substance abuse counseling that he needs. And then he sits before this board and says, I'm ready to get out. Let me back out into society. Let me back out into the community. Oh, and by the way, put me right back where I was in Hartford. That's unfair to the community, and the community does not deserve that. What Mr. Torres needs at this point is to take a little bit more time, invest a little bit deeper in himself and his recovery, so that when he does come back out into this community, he is not reoffending. He is prepared. The high risk score that he has on page, page 3 of his decision information summary, high risk because of education, employment, and financial situations, that he addresses that. When we talked about the employment and the decision tree, he didn't remember the name of the company, right? He needs to take some time and invest in those skills because there's skills that need to be built. So that's the state's position. I thank you for the time and thank the board for their consideration.
Thank you, Attorney Walcott.
Thank you. Attorney Williams, if you have any remarks you'd like to make, you may do so now.
Thank you, and good morning. First, I do want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak and to do so virtually. I know that I requested this and I requested the 9 a.m. I would love to be at Richard's side right now, but I am currently in the middle of evidence in the trial, and I'm trying to give both of my clients as much individualized attention that they deserve. I appreciate all of the comments and concerns and questions from the board and the comments from State's Attorney Walcott. And I know that Richard does as well. From the moment I met him, I don't think that he underscored or sought to distance himself from his actions or from the crime itself. I do understand that some of the language that he used, I know that the board questioned him on it, and I know that State's Attorney Walcott mentioned it. I understand how that can be perceived, and I'm not here saying that it wasn't meant that way, but in getting to know Richard, it is my opinion that that he was not placing blame on anyone but himself. I had some pre-prepared remarks, but I want to get right into that. I think it's extremely important. I read his statement and I thought about asking him to change the wording that, his co-defendant gave him a little push. I don't think that he was trying to say that someone else encouraged him or started or made him do this. I think he was giving the board his honest recollection and his earnest view of the juxtaposition of who he is, who he believes he is as a person, with the facts that he did such a terrible thing. And I think a lot of times that's really hard to come to terms with. So I think that he honestly had a feeling of anxiety, of fear, of a conscience there. And he admits he is easy to persuade. And he stated all that it took was a little nudge. I don't think that he's saying that someone, forced him. In fact, I think he's saying the opposite. All that it took was a little nudge. And the accident, or the incident, occurred. I also, for the same reason, and I appreciate Attorney Wolcott's statement. I think that if anyone is listening and hears Mr. Torres' recollection of the incident and believes that he is in any way blaming the shop owner, I can tell you that from what I know of Richard, that is not the case. He takes full responsibility for his actions, for shooting the shop owner, Mr. Armenta, and for killing him. I think, again, that is the difficulty in internalizing and dealing with the juxtaposition of who I believe myself to be with the facts of my life. To this day, I still don't think he can tell you why he pulled the trigger, but he will tell you that he pulled the trigger. And I certainly can appreciate, the gun went off comment. He's not maintained that as a, the gun, it was just a thing. He has said to me multiple times that, I did this, I shot him. And he should have certainly been more careful with his words here. But I can assure the board that in my experience, I certainly don't think that he is placing the blame on anyone else. I think the most important and the most apparent thing to me about Richard is that he has a willingness to be vulnerable. And I think that is something that is maturity. To answer some of the board's question, I think, have you matured? I think that is one of the biggest and most important signs of maturity. When he was young, he struggled with feeling accepted, feeling love, feeling support. He didn't want to say the things about his childhood because he didn't want to speak ill of his mother. But he recognizes that there were some things throughout his childhood, a lot of things that led him to feel alone, which led him to seek comfort in a community that happened to be a gang. I think guilt, shame, and even remorse can be incredibly powerful feelings, and feelings that a lot of people will run away from and will replace with denial and defiance. Richard hasn't run away from those things. He was earnest, I believe, in his answers to the board's questions, that he cannot do this alone. He will need help. And his willingness to seek help, I think, is the most important step, because thinking he could do this alone is what got him here in the first place. I think it was very telling when he spoke of his work in hospice. You saw him experience some emotion, and I believe I'll quote him saying that, watching someone deteriorate with no one else is when the emotion came out. So I think he felt the pain that has really been inside of him his whole life, of being alone and seeing someone else deteriorate and then ultimately pass while alone, triggers those same feelings. I don't remember which board member, somebody said they acknowledged some humility. I think that was a great word. And I think going hand in hand with that is vulnerability. Allowing yourself to trust someone, allowing yourself to feel connected with someone. I think that is the most, the largest sign of maturity that someone can make, especially someone with substance abuse problems. Now I know there are multiple different reasons to seek substances. A lot of times it is to avoid a feeling rather than to seek the feeling that the substance gives you. And in Richard's case, substances is an avoidance tactic. And that happens when you don't look inward, you don't seek to address the feeling, to acknowledge the feeling. I think that Richard has become willing and able to look inward, see what he is running from, and stop that before it starts. Obviously, he has still made mistakes throughout the years, and he will acknowledge and has acknowledged those. I think it's very telling, the history. I think it was less than a year since after his sentencing that he began his programming. This is not somebody who waited until they could see the light at the end of the tunnel before beginning programming. He was still a young man when he voluntarily joined this programming. That turned into education and certificates and work experience. He is a jack of all trades, and attached with our memorandum are glowing reviews from all of his counselors that had any supervision or experience with him working. He's maintained jobs that others have taken advantage of, like being a barber, being a laundryman. Others can take advantage of that for personal gain. And specifically stated in that evaluation is that Richard is not someone that does that. He's someone that arrives to work early, eager, willing to help others, willing to go above and beyond. We mentioned the tree service. I think he understands the importance of having something in place. I don't think that's something he wants to do for the rest of his life, but he knows that if he were to be released, he would need to do something, to have something in place. So that's the beginning, the tree service. Thankfully, he has a friend who reached out to me. I did not reach out to him, and provided me with that letter, as well as an attachment to his website. And that is in Beacon Falls, which is close to his preferred destination of Waterbury. I obviously was not there at the sentencing in, I believe, 1995. I can't speak to whether or not he showed remorse. I read the transcript, and that can only tell you so much. I can tell you that he pled guilty. And I did write in my memorandum, there's a caveat that it was under the Alford Doctrine, but the judge clarified that that was specifically as to the element of intent. And again, I think that goes to he couldn't recognize or juxtapose or reconcile, his actions with who he believed himself to be. But he stood there and said, my actions, my pulling of the trigger caused the death and no one else's. And he did not contest that. He did not go to trial. And in fact, on the day of sentencing, where he believed he would face a maximum of 40 with a potential for less, the judge did not impose that. He said, I will allow you to withdraw it and take your chances at trial, or you can accept 50 instead. And he has told me it was my responsibility. It was my actions. I'm taking responsibility. I'll take the 50. I have to be punished. He didn't make any statements at the time. I don't know if that was his choice or advice of counsel, but I know that he would have loved, looking back, he certainly would have loved to show the remorse that he felt. And I certainly know feels today. Let me just have a moment, just to make sure I touched on everything that I wanted to. As one of the board members pointed out, I believe his max date is around 5 years from now. So this is in all likelihood at his age and his health, it appears to be. Is it 4? I'm sorry.
4.
It appears that he is someone that will obviously eventually be released. He does have support in the community. His sisters are established members of the community. And I do want to speak briefly to Attorney Walcott. I can certainly appreciate and understand her comments of somebody who did a terrible act in the community of Hartford. And there's no denying that. Richard won't deny that. And certainly choosing Hartford as his second option was in no way an affront to the community or intending to speak, hey, I'm back. He's been incarcerated for 30 years. He doesn't know anything else. He doesn't have connections anywhere else. So that was somewhere he could envision having the most success. But certainly Waterbury was his top choice. He could have options for employment. And he has the intelligence. He has the drive to better himself, the intelligence to continue to seek help, and to keep himself busy, keep himself engaged, which I think he recognizes as another of not an avoidance to keep yourself busy and working, but if he keeps his mind active, that is where he is at his healthiest. So I appreciate the board's time, and I appreciate everyone's comments and questions. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
All right, thank you, Attorney Williams. So at this time, the board members will enter into deliberation to discuss your case. Everyone, of course, can listen to our deliberation. And we'll come back to Mr. Torres with our decision. Mr. Pohl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank the attorneys and social worker and Mr. Torres for being here and presenting their case to us. When I look at this case, if I look back at the PSI, there's a period of time between October of 1993 and August of 1994 that Mr. Torres was on a rampage when it comes to criminal types of things. I believe the regret and the remorse Mr. Torres has shown today is something that's real. If I look at the tools that we use, rating, he rates out low. Both of those, his tickets are interesting in that there's 27 of them. 7 of them have been 7 of them have been since 2020. And all but one of those has been related to substance use or possession. All of which stopped after he took tier 2 in 2023. So there hasn't been any further contraband or refusal to take to give it render a specimen. Neither one of those has been there. Although there is some damaged property in those tickets, there is no violence to people in those tickets. He's had several programs. The interesting piece of that, though, is that most of those programs were from 1996 to 2013. And early on, and it was referenced by the defense attorney, by the public defender, by the programs that he took early on were related to violence. And I don't know, I believe that you tie his conduct inside to the programs that he had taken very, very early on. And we hardly ever see that there's programs taken that early in a sentence that's a 50-year sentence. Right at the beginning of incarceration, it's usually way later. He did take in the last 4 years, he's taken voices, and he's taken tier 2, and he rated in tier 2, he rated as excellent. He, in discussion about recovery and release plan with him, he has a job offer. I think that what he said about counseling and what the state's attorney said, I think what Mr. Torres is alluding to is that it's hard to just get counseling when you have a substance use score of a 2 and a mental health score of a 2 on the inside, but he's committed to doing counseling on the outside. And the two people who Mr. Torres looks up to, his sisters, are both engaged in counseling. So that's something that Mr. Torres wants to pursue as well. He notes that he wants to engage in positive activities, AA and NA, and has some knowledge and is interested in looking at a recovery coach because he'll need the support community. And that's really where the humility statement came from. It's like, oftentimes an offender will leave prison like, I got this. I got this, and in order to get to that place, it's you got to be coming from a place of humility to know it. He knows that he has to cooperate with his parole officer, and he wants to. His comments about AA and people that he wants to be there with. He wants to put people in his life who are positive and want to change. He's had several letters of support. There's a lot of positive things here, right? But what we're dealing with is a murder and an attempt to commit robbery first that involved, to my reading and where I am, it involves substance.
Mhm.
And what we're talking about is it's been a period of 2 years since. There's 4 years or so between now and the sentence for Mr. Torres or his release to the community. I want to hear what you both have to say, but where I am is that I think that an additional couple of years of Mr. Torres showing us that he can remain committed to recovery and maybe, establish some kind of relationship with recovery coach, engage in some kind of recovery-based or positive programming there, and really seek out and put together, he has a lot of good plans, but some more some more work towards his successors. I think as of recent, he's done a really good job with what he's doing. I just have those concerns because they're related to the instant offense.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Paul. And I would agree with much of what you said. I will correct for the record, I have him scoring as moderate in one of his assessments. Yeah, you said low, so just for clarification. Anyhow, I would agree that I do see some growth and change throughout the years. And I hope that Mr. Torres has taken some constructive criticism here today from us. And we'll take our advice. I think we're all on the same page that there's still some work to be done here. The tickets are very serious, and while it has been a little time, 2 years would not be enough for me to feel comfortable given the nature, it's very serious nature of the offense that did involve drugs. So, I like your idea of asking him to do a little more work and revisiting this in 2 years, because he'll still have 2 years left at that point where he could benefit from the support of parole, given that there's no supervision to follow this sentence. Ms. Chance?
So I agree with what both of you have said, and I do have him rated moderate. So I think for me, it just goes back to Mr. Torres's maturity, and I can see a lot of growth there. But in terms of his decision-making, there's room for improvement. And, just referencing the fact that he had a cell phone because he wanted to, keep in touch with his mother when he knew it was wrong and not appropriate. The fact that he does suffer from stress but not willing to seek the inside counseling because he thinks he would have more support when he does that with his sister. Also, very concerning are the DRs and not willing to pursue even the NA meeting and seeing it as negative. And in majority of cases that I know, if an offender or someone like Mr. Torres doesn't attend the programs or meetings, they think of other ways that they can do something to continue with their sobriety. And so I do think he needs some more time in, and he needs to improve his ability to stay clean and follow rules.
Okay, thank you. In the matter of Richard Torres, inmate number 226205, I'll make a motion to deny parole at this time and rehear the case in February of 2027. Reasons for denial: the nature and circumstance of your offenses, your poor institutional adjustment, the disciplinary reports, and inadequate evidence of offender change. Is there anything further?
Second.
Is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Torres, do you understand? We want to give you another opportunity to come back before us, but we want you to do a little more work. So participate in programming, continue to work, maybe find some meetings or supportive groups there in the facility. Certainly refrain from any further disciplinary reports. And really think about the things that we've talked about here today. I hope it'll be helpful for you and not all negative. Okay, we wish you the best. Thank you to everyone for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the Public Act 2369 hearing for Richard Torres, inmate number 226205, and it is 10:33 a.m.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess before we start the next case.
Okay.
Thank you.
And they denied, and couldn't you believe it? Now I gotta start. The ADA, what a difference it makes. I mean, she was talking, I felt like she was hitting on all the points that we always talk about, after each hearing, like going through the criminal histories and talking about the gun that goes off by itself and how he, the words that he used where he had to get nudged out. It was like as if she was leading the Mandoo show. It was really something. I really liked her. I wish we could hear her more. She's like, I don't always watch Connecticut parole hearings, but when I do, I drop a mic. And we would love to see you back more often, but for whatever reason, it's not like a Connecticut thing that they show up to parole hearings, only Act 23-169 hearings, and but for the most part, the attorneys we've seen have been pretty good, the ADAs, and you have to almost feel bad for the attorney representing him. I have a client in court that I need to do right by them, otherwise I'd be here. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's what a freebie attorney is. They pick the client that's paying because you got someone who's got a lot riding on this too. You could have shown up in person for that, but I mean, he was an uphill battle anyways. What in the world could you have done to have gotten him off? I mean, he put up a good fight. He put up a good fight trying to say, oh, the words, he wouldn't mean it like that. And it's like, no, I'm so happy that it was called out because guns don't just go off except when the bad guy buy. I mean, the bad guys, it's something that we hear all the time in these parole hearings. We really do. It's just something they say. The gun went off. Except for the ADA calling an Uzi a machine gun. I mean, it's a submachine gun, but I'm not gonna get crazy here. But yeah, he brought a submachine gun and shot him 5 times. And the story you heard him putting up was like, oh, and I was nervous. I thought he was reaching for something, and it's like, shut up. Like, please, spare me. We'll go through the information. Thank you, Lady Holly. But Mike Pohl, God, I think most of us feel the same way about him. You would not have known anything about this case. He's kind of like Miss Wise, but much worse. I mean, Miss Wise, at least, I think would deny more. Mike Pohl is just wearing rose colored glasses. Except the strangest thing about his glasses is that when he looks at crying victims, I think he sees demons. But when he looks at the murderer, he sees rainbows and turtles and unicorns. And it's just weird. It's just weird. I hope I got the timestamps right. Again, I've been seeing the comment section. Do the timestamps, man. Do this. Not so. I've never done it. How do you do it? You go and you type in the time and then you put it in the description. I'll figure it out. Okay, I know it can't be that hard. Okay, so man gets 50 years in death of grocer. Imagine reading this in your local newspaper. 50 years, that's it, life sentence. Guy's never getting out, but it's always a gimmick. Richard Torres's mother, anguished and jittery, clung tightly to her son's chest Friday as he was given a 50-year sentence for gunning down the Hartford grocer. We heard a lot about his mother, and I loved, oh, that's true. I loved that it was, who was it? It was Zach Anini, the parole board member, Zach Anini, who quickly called him out on the phone. It's like, I needed a phone to call my mother. And then she's like, oh, but you had a tablet. You had a tablet because I see you have a write-up for losing your tablet. So when did she get it? And she quickly put together that he was lying because he actually had his tablet at them. This guy lied through his teeth. I mean, a Pruno write-up for making booze 2 years ago. Oh, I can't go to AA because the guy. Oh my God, it's like, it can make you appreciate the people who actually do try hard and do well and take programs versus this who is just putting on a show. Poor mama though. But when the sheriff's Hartford Superior Court tried to separate the two and take Torres to prison, the mother's unyielding embrace gave way to a noisy melee. It ended with a pileup in the courtroom floor as 7 police officers and sheriff deputies struggled to restrain Torres. As family members screamed and sheriffs climbed over benches to clear the courtroom, police and other deputies pulled Torres's arms behind him and put handcuffs around his wrists. They quickly lifted him and whisked him face down, feet first, out of the courtroom into a secure alleyway. The tumult continued as the sheriffs herded Torres' relatives and friends out of the courtroom, down 2 flights of stairs and out Lafayette Street. "Where the hell do you think you are? Park Street?" a sheriff supervisor shouted at Torres' brother. "I want this man arrested." Watching a second son led to the lockup. Torres' mother dissolved tears and pleaded with police. Watching a second son. So I don't know where the melee, they don't really explain it, but I guess one of the brothers started a fight. I don't know. Nearby, 3 young relatives stood stunned and crying. A court worker knelt by them. "Don't cry, honey, don't cry," she told the youngest, who appeared to be about 4. That's just terrible. Who brings a 4-year-old to this? That's just nuts. It's like they're trying to get sympathy from the judge being a 4-year-old. Torres, 21, was in court to be sentenced for his role in the botched June 29, 1994 robbery. You can even call it botched. Botched sounds totally, it's just not botched. And South End that ended in the death of Armando Armenta. Torres and 2 other men entered the store with the intentions of robbing the place to pay for narcotics. Torres, a Latin Kings member, was facing 40 years prison term as part of the plea bargain. Did they mention that he was Latin King? Did I miss that? Could be I missed it. I listened to some of this on 2X. But Judge Thomas M. Piano said he could not honor the deal because Torres refused to name one of his accomplices. He gave Torres 3 choices: identify the accomplice, withdraw his guilty plea and go to trial, or continue the sentence, face 50 years in prison term. Torres said he'd take the 50 years. Isn't it interesting he didn't want to go to trial? He said, "Give me 50 years." Miano says Torres' easily willingness to spend the extra decade behind bars corroborates my thinking that there's a kind of macho attitude among our youth. I mean, he probably also knew that he'd get shamed if he ratted, so. But Torres' attorney, M. Friend DiCaprio, and Torres would not fare well in prison if we were known to have identified, there you go, an accomplice. Although Torres insisted he did not intend to kill Amentia, police said he pursued the store owner and fired 5 shots from a 9mm Uzi at close range. All shots struck Amentia, hitting his arm, neck, and upper chest. And didn't the way that he described it in the parole hearing that there were just 2 shots? Before sentencing, Torres strode into court and raised confident fist to supporters in the courtroom. His mother, by contrast, was shaking as she stepped to his side. She immediately gave him a tight embrace and pushed her lips to his cheek. She did not let go of him throughout the proceeding. Miano said the killing was a tragedy and said it seemed to be another crime in which the defendants start high school, drop out, spend their days idle, begin using narcotics, and eventually drift in crime. He said the problem was bigger in the criminal justice system. Until society addresses this, it's going to get worse. And it has gone worse, I think. We're going to lose a generation upon generation. I don't think he's wrong about that. These are the 90s. When Miano imposed the sentence, Torres' mother gripped her son hard. Sheriff urged her to let go and began moving the pair toward the door leading to lockup. Torres quietly told his mother to let go, but she would not. When sheriffs began to pull her, she let out an ear-piercing no. As they pulled harder, Torres began struggling with sheriffs, and the scene quickly turned to mayhem. I think this day and age, they would never even let her have been near him. She would have been like a full row back. Miano reached for a panic button hidden near his desk, and the sheriffs began shouting for the courtroom to be cleared. A victim's advocate quickly escorted him into his relatives out back. The court monitor left her seat, and although a tape recorder continued to capture the sound of the melee, police and sheriff wrestled Torres to the ground and stood on his limbs and back to immobilize him. Torres' brother was shouting Torres to calm down. Enough. Sheriffs apparently believed he was aggravated in the situation. Torres said little as he was led away, and the sheriff's refuted his sneaker had fallen off his foot. Although sheriffs carried mace and clubs, one police detective said holstered a handgun. No weapons were used, no punches thrown. One sheriff got a scratch in his ear, but there appeared to be no serious injuries. I mean, of course, it is tragic for mom. And you can see that he had a close relationship with his mother. But what a contrast between him defiantly raising his fist and then him literally in this hearing walking away shriveled up. You kill a father, you kill a husband, someone just trying to make money, and you shoot him 5 times. It's like you deserve every bloody day in prison. And it's almost like a laugh at the system, because they're talking about, oh, you're going to get 50 years. But here he is, not going to serve all 50. And with that, I'll let you go.
I don't know if the victim's family is listening in, but if they are listening in, what they're going to hear is that the man that murdered the victim's husband and the victim's fathers has been doing good for about 2 years, because his last set of disciplinary tickets were in 2022 for the same things he was struggling with when he committed these heinous acts. So in 2022, he's caught with marijuana and making his own alcohol inside of a correctional facility. In 1994, when these acts happened, he's sitting outside smoking marijuana and drinking. Where's the change? Where's the rehabilitation? Where is that narrative that shows Torres has reflected, Mr. Torres has reflected on his actions and said, I'm going to do better. When I get out into the community, I don't want to be the same person.